What is up, my ninjas? What's up, Chapman Films? I know it's been a long time coming, but it's finally here. This is the final piece of my G.I. Joe collection videos. This is a look at the Joe team. Now, in the case of my team, it's a little bit different. It's split into two teams. I kind of cut it in half. There's a couple people that you will see from the first team that show up in the second team, but they have a little bit of a different function. Also, I'm going to start off with a vehicle that kind of is important, if you have it, to your Joe team and how they do what they do. I apologize to everybody for how long it took. Life, that's all I can say. You know, you got a family, a lot of things pop up, but sit back, you know, get a beer, a soda, something, sit down, just chill out and check out what I got in store for you, alright? Here we go.
And now a few words from our sponsor.
We're taking this battle to Cobra. Lock and load. Yo, Joe!
Now, if you are an avid collector of G.I. Joe and you have a Joe team and you got purpose behind what you are trying to achieve with your collection, this is kind of a must-have. You got to have a place for the team to operate out of. Now, with my team, I started collecting with Rise of Cobra, so when this came out, this was kind of a must-have for me, and my wife was awesome enough to pick it up for me. We got it on sale. I think she got it for like 40 or 50 bucks. This is the, it's called the Pit, because when you open it up, that's what it looks like, but we call it the Rock, because if you're a G.I. Joe fan, you understand that if this thing is rolling around from place to place and it's mobile, then it is the Rolling Operations Command Center as opposed to the Pit, because the interior reminds you of the Pit, which is the actual, you know, base that the Joes do things from. Now, my Joe team, this review is going to be done, or this video, it's going to be done out of the Pit for the most part, so or out of the Rock for the most part. So what you're seeing is, you know, different Joes. They're going to be all over the place doing what they do. We got Covergirl at the monitors, gathering intel. We got General Hawk doing what he does, you know, drinking his coffee and making sure that the team is being dispatched to the best places possible. You also are going to see what I've got here, which I consider him, and I think in the comics that's how it is, the first Joe. He is one of the leads, the captains, if you will, of the Joe team. And what I did was I separated it where there are 4 characters who they just jump around from team to team where they're needed, and they go on missions by themselves. They're kind of the alpha level Joes, if you will, and that would be Stalker, Scarlet, Flint, and Duke. Beachhead is in there, you know, kind of, but he has an actual team to lead, which you will see shortly. But these are them. Pretty much anytime something's going on and it's a mission that might not require a whole team of Joes, you send these guys. They're the examples. They're the ones who embody, they fully embody what the code name G.I. Joe means. So everybody else is aspiring to be like them. Sometimes you'll see these guys with the most different costumes in my team, but yeah, like I said, they're the important, you know, kind of field commanders of the Joe team. Now, when I was growing up, I did not have the OG 13. I didn't even know about them because I watched the cartoon first, collected the figures, and then started reading the comics as I got much older, like high school. So here we have what we call the Wild Pack, which is the A Real American Hero Joe team in my Joe-verse. So you're seeing kind of old school versions of some of the characters. And since I have a mixture of figures from the 25th anniversary to the, you know, modern era, some of them are here because they're more old school versions of the Joes. You're seeing an old school version of, well, the 25th anniversary Quick Kick, Snake Eyes. I'm using that version of Shipwreck as my old school Shipwreck. Sometimes I use him as the new school version too, just, you know, a placeholder. Flint is one of the leaders of the team. He's like the second in command because there's no Duke. This is pre-Duke. because if you notice, this old school Duke, he's the first Duke and he died. It's part of the story that I'm working on, but you will see that shortly. I showed you a bunch of clips of that before, but anyway, you know, this is kind of how it goes. I have a custom, kind of a really lightweight custom Beachhead. I just swapped out gear from a busted version of Shock Blast from Rise of Cobra and put it on the Rise of Cobra Beachhead figure. So I figured this just looks a little bit more old school. And you'll see a lot of Beachhead. I used the kind of OG 25th anniversary Lady Jaye because, you know, this is the kind of 80s, early 90s team. That's her original, you know, look from the 80s, so it kind of fits, you know, and it could work even today. Characters like Snowjob, I love Snowjob. A lot of people don't like him, but I like the idea of this like survivalist type character, and to me he's like a Chuck Norris type dude where he just, like the jokes say, he just does whatever. He's just that raw, you know. And plus, you know, you think about the old James Bond and stuff, you always had the Arctic missions. They're just kind of cool. So there's your specialist. Having this team and having a couple 25th anniversary figures allows me to do some things differently, like have a young Roadblock. That's why he's so small. I'm not a big fan of the 25th anniversary. Some of the figures were good, most of them were not. So, you know, and including this Roadblock. You know, he's not the best figure, but he fits. Here is the low light that ODC That's Me hooked me up with, and since he's wearing lighter colors, I figured here that's the old school version of him when he first popped up on the Joe squad. And I don't know, it works. Even a different sniper rifle, it just works. I dig crazy ass pilots. I like when they have those on the team, so Wild Bill fits perfectly. You have to have him. I almost wish the version of Wild Bill that I had gray hair. You know, like his mustache and his hair were gray, because that would fit even better. And I'm talking about like the Pursuit of Cobra or Rise of Cobra version, I mean. But this fits for the 80s. He was a little bit younger. Now we fast forward to the future, or the present. And these are my green and gray shirts. I had an idea to do a short with them where they had names and whatnot. But, you know, I kind of opted against it. I don't know, maybe down the road I will do it. The names I had were Boondocks, A+, Boss, and Cheese, and they were all like kind of one. The guy with the mask wants to be like Snake Eyes, you know. The green shirt with Mouse's head thinks he's the greatest leader ever. He's trying to be that, you know. It was kind of goofy stuff, but those are the, you know, trainees. Here is Stalker standing with a bunch of kind of guards. These are the guys I usually keep on top of the pit. They don't really have code names, although there was a period of time where actually, let me just talk more about Stalker. He's got gear that comes from the Joe Troopers, because you know those are my favorites, and he didn't really have much gear. Not that he needed it. I mean, he's Stalker, he's supposed to be that damn good, you know, but I just wanted to change up things for a little bit. I might go back to the old stuff, but this guy for a while was my team sniper. And I used to call him long range because I didn't have a low light and I wanted one. You figure when you have, when you need a sniper, this, you know, low light would be the guy. But, you know, if you don't have low light, you could always throw long range on the team. So he's pretty much long range for the team. Here are my Steel Brigade members. And one of, you know, the JOES is training this particular batch of Steel Brigade folks. Now, if you've watched some of my other reviews, you will recognize this character. He is an original character. He is he joined the Joe team to help train the Steel Brigade folks, and then he left to be part of my team. This is Gunman. That's his, you know, pre-Fenris Company attire. These are the Steel Brigade captains. How can you tell that they're captains? They have the sidearms and the simpler pants with the pocket and everything. And I didn't notice this for a while, but like, you know, it was strange. There's like several different versions of the Steel Brigade characters or figures from Pursuit of Cobra. And when you look at the regular Steel Brigade, look at their legs, they have the more common legs that we're used to seeing on most of the Pursuit of Cobra line. I dig the fact that there is a difference between different versions of the Steel Brigade folks, you know. Even their shirts are different. Now this right here, this is the colors. This is the main G.I. Joe force that most people will see. I want to say there's one, maybe two characters on this team that sometimes show up on the other team. But this is the team that's in the public eye. People see them. This is the team that makes the news from time to time. This is the, quote, the closest to the classic G.I. Joe team in my universe. This is when I was a gunsmith. I was a Joe first, then I was given my own team. There's Snake Eyes. It's the Pursuit of Cobra Snake Eyes. There's not much to say. Everybody knows who Snake Eyes is. He's on this team. Here is my first Joe. This is Rock and Roll Senior, and you'll see why I call him Rock and Roll Senior in a little bit. Here is my kind of a makeshift, kind of bootleg Alpine. It's made from a Fearless Forces figure. He just looked the part, so I gave him the goggles. Here is my custom Kamakura, because I don't like any version of Kamakura except for maybe the Valor vs. Venom version. Here's Lifeline. You gotta have a medic, and since he's a combat medic, he is perfect for you know, being part of this Joe team. Here's Sci-Fi, one of my favorite Joes of all time, and I prefer him with the you know, visor down, the whole Halo Green Ranger look. Here's Lady Jaye, one of my other favorite Joes of all time. I have like 5 Joes, you know, that are my favorites of all time, and she's one of them. So unique. Airtight. You gotta have a hazardous chemical specialist, you know. He's just cool for, you know, fighting Chemical Z and all that shit. Here is Roadblock, the Resolute Roadblock, my favorite Roadblock figure of all time. Next to him is Law and Order. This is the Renegades version. I just dig them. I didn't feel like anything needed to be changed. In my eyes, he's still Hispanic. Here is, what is it? Renegades Tunnel Rat. Infiltration. Here's Dusty. He is the Desert Warfare Specialist, or Desert Trooper. This Pursuit of Cobra Dusty. I love this figure. That was my first Pursuit of Cobra figure, actually. And here's the team leader, Beachhead. Pursuit of Cobra Beachhead, one of the hardest looking figures in the line. And here is Sergeant Bazooka. This is a 25th anniversary figure. I just dig his musculature and whatnot. He was a present for Father's Day for my wife and my stepson. And here is Lowlight. This is Pursuit of Cobra Lowlight that was given to us via the 50th anniversary line. And he's got a Marauder's rifle. These are just extra versions of Snake Eyes that I have. For some reason, you know, he's cool, I guess, and he gets some of the cool designs. You kind of have to get them. So I've got the Resolute version from Rise of Cobra and the movie version from Retaliation. Here are my 2 other Roadblocks. The ones I don't like so much, the Rock Blocks. So I've got other things in store for them. Because we all know they're not Roadblock, and they're not taking his place. Now, for the pit, or I'm sorry, the Rock, it takes 2 people to drive it. So I figured I would put my 2 Steel Brigade Deltas in there. I dig Steel Brigade Deltas. I like the design. I love that they're a lot heavier duty than the standard Steel Brigade. Hence the whole Delta being added onto them. Now, for the ninja people who gotta have your ninjas, we've got Blind Master, and in the background you got a little Jinx action to be, you know, your ninjas for the team. I'm not huge on the ninja thing. Ninja Force kind of got me ninja'd out, so Cobra has more ninjas than G.I. Joe does. Here are my extra versions of Flint, being that he's one of my favorites. I have a couple versions of him. I think I have about 5 versions of Flint. You already saw one of the other versions in the beginning when I showed you the pit. Here are my other versions of Duke. with this Jungle Duke being one of my favorites as well. I like Duke. A lot of people don't. I think he's a versatile character, but I don't like the version. I don't like the, Channing Tatum as Duke. So none of my Dukes have Channing Tatum's head. They all have some other kind of head. Next up is a custom that I'm working on. Yes, this is Boomstick. He is an explosives expert, wearing his Fenris greens because he will be part of Fenris Company. He is based on my homeboy ODC, that's me. Now, the thing that I'm still working on is the epic beard. ODC, that's me's got a hell of a beard. Now, I was also looking for a character or a head of a guy that was smiling, because he's always got this big old Kool-Aid smile. So I was like, man, it'd be dope to have his figure have the big old Kool-Aid smile and the epic beard. But I'm working on it. You can see where I started painting, and I was trying to kind of like slowly build up and not go nuts. Kind of almost 5 o'clock shadow like, kind of like you shaved it for work. But I'm working on building it up for you though. But yeah, that's in the works, brother. Also, here is Rock and Roll Senior and Rock and Roll Junior. Now, since Rock and Roll is an older Joe, he's been around for a while because he's the first Joe I ever had, I figured he would have had relations, being the cool kind of guy he is. He would have had relations and at some point had a kid. And that kid would grow up and join the Joe team. And pretty much like father, like son, carry on. Because, there's, in my Joe-verse, some Joes tend to retire or get killed or something, you know what I mean? And they stop being Joes and someone else will pick back up the code name. So, in this case, you got one on the colors and one on Shadowhammer. Now, who's this guy? This pretty much is Firefly impersonating a Steel Brigade member. A Steel Brigade captain, actually, an infiltration expert. I purposefully put the Firefly head on, the ultimate Firefly head on there, so it would be a little bit more obvious. But if you saw him walking around the base, I mean, Joes that are really sharp would notice, because he's got a different kind of balaclava on. But most people would just see a Steel Brigade infiltrator walking by. They wouldn't really notice that there was anything that different about him, So, like, whenever I play those kind of plots, this is the extra Steel Brigade, figure that I have laying around that I use for that purpose. Or if I need one more captain, then I put the right head on there. Because for some reason I have a ton of those heads. But, just a little bit of info. Anyway, here is the second arm of the G.I. Joe Force, which is their Black Ops unit named Shadowhammer. The idea with Shadowhammer is sometimes things happen that you can't have the colors deal with because the approach needs to be a little bit more, heavy. So they use Shadowhammer. Of course, General Hawk leads this team. And you see a lot of these Joes. This is the Pursuit of Cobra line. This is Rise of Cobra, with a little bit of Pursuit of Cobra mixed in. But these are the figures where I started. When it gets cold, General Hawk puts on his jacket. Gotta stay warm, Sometimes it gets cold down there. These are pretty much their support staff. So, Covergirl and Breaker are usually with General Hawk, or he's working with them. And in the back, you have your various pit commandos and, pit guards. And I came up with a code name for, well, I'll get into it later. Anyway, that's Covergirl, the one most people don't like this figure. I love it because I don't think that the woman that played her in the film was that attractive to begin with. And I love this figure, but I wish there was a version of Breaker that came with the monocle and the armor like he had in the film. I don't know why they didn't just do that, you know what I mean? Like, that's the one thing I wanted from Rise of Cobra that they didn't do. But most of Rise of Cobra's figures, like I said, there's some awesome figures. I mean, look at the detail on him. His face is even really cool. Excuse me. Sorry, it's late. Long day. Sergeant Stone, he trains Joes. He is one of those like jack of all trades. I imagine him as Scott Adkins from Special Forces. That's exactly who he is. He can fight, he can shoot, he can hack, he can do it all. He's like a James Bond in a Joe form, and I just dig him. This guy was a trade on the Joe community back when I liked it a lot more than I do now on Facebook. These are your pit troopers up close, so you guys can kind of see I have 2 for wet work and 2 that stay in the, in the pit. They guard the pit along with the actual pit guards. I think that's Roll Bar is in the background and Bulletproof is in the foreground. And I made up their names. I think Roll Bar actually was the name he came with. One of them came with, but I named the other one Bulletproof. These are the Fly Boys. These guys are the air support for the Shadowhammer team. You have Air Raid here. I like Air Raid because, he's just an interesting looking guy. And it was easy to make this guy. And next up we have Scud. He's made from that head comes from an old Triple H from those, I forgot what they were called. Then we have Wingman. I thought that would be cool. Real simple, Then we have Barrel Roll. I used the head from the that 1 3-pack that had Kamakura and Beachhead and Roadblock. And then they're led by Airborne. I know he had a different name, but I chose to name him Airborne because he kind of reminded me of that character. Airborne, Skydive, and Ripcord hang out because they all were in the Air Force together, and there's a little bit of camaraderie between these 3. We've played a couple missions or stories where we had them together, and it was pretty fun, to have, the guy on the ground, the dude with the wings, and the guy piloting the plane. This is the main force of Shadowhammer, so it's a mixture of what you saw in the movie and some of the figures and characters that were introduced into the lore via the actual action figure line. And I dig that a lot because it makes this more interesting for people like me, because like I said, this is where I got back into collecting. So immediately when I saw they were all wearing like black and they had the darker colors, and some people had bright colors like you see yellow and red on there, I was like, I gotta make them Black Ops. So here's the Rise of Cobra Scarlet and Rise of Cobra Helix, Agent Helix. And I know a lot of people don't like that Scarlet, but it's functional. There is Ripcord, Mr. Marlon Wayans. I like this version of Ripcord because it gives him a little bit more personality. I make him a little bit more serious. Here is Mr. Echo, and it's heavy duty, and he just looks raw, and he is. That's the way I like him to be. Here's Duke, and if you noticed, he's not Channing Tatum, because Channing Tatum is not Duke in my eyes. Here is Anthony Flash Gambello. He is a holdover from the OG 13 days, but I love this toy. It's really cool. Here's Snake Eyes. I customized this figure both in the head and the legs to make him look more film accurate, and to improve some things on the film version, actually. And there's Shipwreck harassing people as he always does, along with Polly. This Shipwreck is probably my favorite of these figures. It's just he has personality, and I dig the mixture of stuff that they, of design elements. These 2 came to the Joe team from the UK branch, which is the Action Force. I always pictured Helix for some reason as she having a British accent. Maybe it's the whole Kate Beckinsale kind of Celine throwback, vibe that I get from her costume. I don't know. But yeah, they're the Brits, and they're helping on the Joe team. These 3 here are just extra versions of, characters here. And I'm not a big fan of all of them. Like, I love the Scarlet because the hair on this one matches the rest of her clothes, because that's how she looked in the movie. I love the Heavy Duty's clothing, but I hate his face. And the Snake Eyes is pretty cool. I usually use him when he goes out with General Hawk. But look at this face. What the fuck were they thinking at Hasbro HQ or, you know, in production? That's just wrong. I mean, damn. The Snake Eyes, of course, it's Snake Eyes. That's the head that I used. I have two of these figures, and I used the head from the other one strictly to customize the main Snake Eyes. And then there's their secret weapon, the Accelerator Suits, that everybody seems to hate, that I think make perfect sense. If you played the video game, it was cool. It was like your invincibility was to have your suits teleported to you. I thought that was dope, and that's the way I use these things. They're kind of like, you know, if the situation's getting that hard, they need to use these suits. So, you know, we've got Ripcord and Duke in the Accelerator Suits. Now, there is a team 2. Now, some of this is just like for fun, you know what I mean? Like, you see a version of Beachhead there. He can't be on every team, but that custom is fairly important to me because it was one of those customs where it was me making the best out of a bad trade, and I actually like the end result. This team is kind of a backup team for the most part. The only character who may or may not be in there in the final, you know, when I'm actually playing around, is Beachhead. This is Charbroil. He is their explosives and flamethrower specialist on the team. Next up we have Wetsuit. He is their SEAL. That expression cracks me up, so most of the time I have that mask still on him. And then here's Flint. This is the 50th anniversary Flint, but he was wearing the right colors that landed him directly on this team. So yeah, Modern Flint is part of the secondary team. If you notice, like I said, Flint tends to be, he's one of the team leads, one of the captains, so he tends to be wherever they need him, and here is where they need him most of the time. So while Duke tends to be doing missions on his own, Flint does too, but he helps lead this team. Here is Rock and Roll Jr. I mean, he's rock and roll as far as they know, because I have it where he joins after his father retires. Here is the Beachhead custom, my Rise of Cobra Beachhead custom. Now, I know there already was a Rise of Cobra Beachhead, which I showed you with my OG 10, but I figured he needed to look more hardcore. Beachhead is that character, so I had a bad trade where a guy sent me nothing that I asked for in the trade after he got my Sky Striker. But since I just wanted the Sky Striker gone, it wasn't so bad, and I was able to utilize what it was given to me. Here is Snowjob. This is the Pursuit of Cobra version of... No, this is the Rise of Cobra version of Snowjob. And then we have Skydive. And he is pretty much an Halo jumper, essentially. I like this figure a lot. Then you have your medic and your pilot, Wild Bill and Doc. You gotta have support people, more support people. And you know, like I said, I like Wild Bill a lot, so I have a couple Wild Bills. I think I have like 4 versions of Wild Bill, maybe 3. But I only have one Doc, and it's the Pursuit of Cobra, or Rise of Cobra Doc. I don't know why I keep saying that. I guess it's because they're all connected. Anyway, now we're going to move over to the vehicular side of things. I'm going to start out with the vehicles that the regular Joe team uses, and, you know, occasionally you'll see some crossover with Shadowhammer, and the rest of them will just be the rest of them. Here you see my Blackhawk and my Chinook. They're pretty much your basic transport and extraction vehicles. The Chinook is pretty cool because it's a big vehicle. You can actually put like a old school, what were those things called? The old school Vamp, or like a Jeep, like a small 2-seater. You could even probably fit a longer 4-seater, but I just have, you know, the 2-seater Jeep. And you can fit a bunch of bikes. You can fit, I fit about 20 dudes in there. No, a little less than 20. We'll say about, what was it? No, 15 or so, 16 or so, something like that. 8 on each side of the walls. Next we have their primary air support vehicle, which is the Skyhammers. These are M0 Flashhawks, and I repurposed them. I did a review on them years ago. They just made more sense because if the new Sky Strikers are going to be single pilots or single seaters, then why does it have to be so big to do the things that it does? This is half the size of the Sky Striker, and it does everything that the Sky Striker does and more. You can pull out the landing gear while you have the wings back. If you pull one wing, both wings open up. If you press the button on the very back, there's lights and sounds on the thrusters, and it's like swooshing sounds and whatnot. So I removed all the core stickers and put the G.I. Joe stickers on there. So as you can see here, this one is the lead, having Ace inside of them. But each one of them has a different pilot. I took the pilots from the various True Heroes vehicles that I had, and I put them in there so they could be nameless, you know, support staff, because, you know, Ace is really the one plain pilot that matters, and maybe Ghost Rider, but a lot of people don't even know Ghost Rider exists. And I mean, a lot of Joe fans don't even know who Ghost Rider is. He's the one that in the comics, he piloted the Conquest. But I used the different stickers to differentiate them, with the lead having the Pursuit of Cobra Joe emblem, which I really dig. I dig that almost more than the Eagle, because it's kind of straightforward, you know, a star and some stripes, and, you know, I don't know, it tells the tale. This is the Ace, the Pursuit of Cobra Ace, or 30th anniversary Ace. He came with the Sky Striker. I traded mine because, like I said, I didn't really like that vehicle. I felt like it was kind of a ripoff. I mean, the thing was, what, $50, $60? And it really wasn't an improvement over what we got in the 80s. You know, it felt like the same exact thing, except for the fact that instead of having 2 seats and having the ejection seat in there, you had 1 seat. You didn't have the ejection seat, and everything else was just kind of, you know, meh. So I traded mine, kept Ace, gave him a new plane, and I like these better. They're easy to play with, you know. Here is my Recon Sled. This is actually a repurposed True Heroes Sentinel-1, you know, vehicle. Sentinel-1 has some cool shit. I mean, there's another vehicle that I'm gonna pick up. It's like $30. This thing was $10. There was a contest or something, or I forgot what they were doing. I guess it was kind of a conceptual thing with some guys on his tank that were doing their own, like, what if G.I. Joe was to come back, you know, what kind of new people would they have and whatever, and they kind of mocked up what it would look like, you know, for these characters, customs to be official characters. A lot of the names were really corny, but this was one of the cool ones. They had a dude named Throttle. He had really high-tech gear on, and then he piloted this thing. So I was like, you know what? I had seen this in the store, and I was like, I need to get that, you know? So Recon Sled. It's like the Recon Sled Mark II. I just dig this design. It's a big, beefy, you know, motorcycle. And, you know, in my Joe-verse, this is something that Weaponsmith made for the Joe team, because the old Recon Sleds were kind of lame, and he felt like they needed something that was tougher and faster and could be used on multiple, you know, terrains. So, you know, this is that vehicle. I just like the look of the you know, the overall look of the vehicle. It feels like if this thing got shot at, and this is like kind of a theme that my older son and I came up with most Joe vehicles, is it is mostly when we started getting core vehicles and repurposed them as Joe vehicles, is that they're just heavily armored and just extremely tough. So you could use a bike to kill a helicopter and the bike will survive. A Joe bike would survive, you know what I mean? Like, just the way it's built and the materials used, make these things last a long ass time. Which is why it was kind of cool for me when you see in Resolute, when they find the hangar where all the Joe shit is being kept, and it's all still functional, and it's stuff from like the 80s, you know, essentially it's the same gear they used in the 80s and it's still good now. I kind of want to, I put that to use in my Joe verse, you know, that's the way their stuff is. Next we have the, what is this, the Mark II Vamp. I dig these. It's the Pursuit of Cobra version, and I dig these a lot. Or maybe this is the 30th version, because I think the Pursuit of Cobra version was tan. But Pursuit of Cobra 30th, it's all the same for me. These are the new Vamps. I love these things. They're 4-seaters. They resemble the Humvees used overseas. You know, it's not a lot of covering, but they're easy to get in, easy to get out. They're pretty, you know, decent speed. You've got the working wench on the front. You've got the grenade launcher on the top, or the cannon on top, whatever you want it to be. And this particular one I have, you can what's the word I'm looking for? It's got modular design elements as far as where you can put your weapons. You know, like the sniper rifle on the front, you could take that off and mount that almost anywhere. I just keep it where they told you to keep it, because it seems functional that way. And you've got your Steel Brigade Deltas piloting it. Excuse me, sorry. It's late. We've had a pretty long day. I just dig the design, you know. I think you got your flares on the side. It just looks like the type of vehicle that this frame is tough, that it can take whatever's being thrown at it, and you know, it's functional. Like I said, get in and out. Make sure that the troops you put in are either just badasses or they're wearing the proper amount of body armor so that they could survive whatever's being thrown at them. My Steel Brigade Deltas kind of take the place of Clutch, because I've never had a Clutch figure. For a while I just called one of the Steel Brigade Deltas Clutch, just because. But I don't like doing that. If I call him Clutch, I want him to have I want to put the proper head on him and just make Clutch a Steel Brigade Delta. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, these are just really good for whatever. They're extremely versatile. I mean, it's pretty big compared to the, you know, classic Vamp, but it's cool because it's an upgrade. The old one could only do 2, could only carry 2. This thing can carry up to about 6, because you could put 2 in the back. With this particular loadout, you can only do about 5. But, you know, whatever. You know, and here's another one. I have 2 with an extra, you know, a different loadout, you know, with the cannon on top and the Gatling gun on top. It's just cool that you can do that. And so in this one, I can have the 6 that I'm talking about, you know what I mean, comfortably inside the vehicle, you know, 2 in the back, 2 in the middle seats, and the driver and another person up front. It looks like it works to me, you know what I mean? You can't really complain too much. Next we have the quote-unquote Snarler cycle, and I think that name is stupid, so I just call those the Ram cycles. These Ram cycles with their little sidecars, I purposefully have one that doesn't have the gun on it and one that does. You could easily carry 2 guns or carry something big and sit in the sidecar. To me, that would make more sense. The big cannon on the other one, that works too. It's just, if you want speed, you have those guns on the sides of the you know, sidecar, as well as the big gun. If you had less guns, I think it would be faster. I don't know. It's one of those things, you know. I play a lot of Twisted Metal and stuff like that, where you have vehicles that are kind of set up like this. So I like this. I like this for the quick, you know, crazy, you know, you want to get in and get out type situation, and this works perfectly. You can disconnect the sidecar from the actual cycle, and none of the parts of the sidecar stick, you know, are stuck on the bike once you detach the 2. You just have a regular bike, and that's pretty awesome. It's a pretty fast little crotch rocket. Here's our Rogue, the Joe Rogue, or a Little Eagle. It's a little bird helicopter essentially, and I call it a Rogue or a Little Eagle because those are, it's nicknames for them. They call them rogues and mercenaries, and I'm like a G when it comes to piloting these things. I can do whatever I want when I get a hold of one of these. So I kind of carried that over to my Joe-verse. They're pretty quick, they're nimble, they're light armor because heavy armor slows it down. You can fit 4 guys on this thing, 2 in the front and 2 in the back. Everything works really well. The problem I had with this vehicle is it's fallen. I used to have it hanging in my man cave, or sometimes I'd have it landed. I had it for a little while. It landed on top of my my AC unit, and the AC unit, I guess it's a light vibration, so it was slowly moving over to the edge, and it finally just fell out, or fell off. And the landing gear, you can kind of see the glue right there in that picture where the landing gear connects to the body of the helicopter. And I wasn't happy with all that, because I'm thinking to myself, it's supposed to be tough, come on now. But you can kind of see that I have a good mix of actual Hasbro product and True Heroes, because the two things work so well together. I just don't overdo it because Joe is a little bit sci-fi, so I have like a good helping of both just because it makes sense. But I mean, you can see all the details on this thing. It's really nice, really well done. Nothing looks cheap, and overall everything just works really well together. It sometimes gives you a really accurate, portrayal in this scale. Now, here is one of my grails. I did a review on this too. This is my Hercules, my AC-130. Now, this is a True Heroes vehicle. You can find these still for increasing prices. Don't buy it online unless you find it for $40 or below, maybe even 50, 50 or below, I guess. I got mine for 40, and I got it like, I want to say the second time this thing showed up a couple years back. Shadowhammer pretty much uses this. This is the Shadowhammer portion, because the Flyboys are the ones that pilot this. And the funny thing about this is that sometimes we use it in the Joe stuff because it has markings that just look like regular Air Force. But if you look closely, underneath the guns on the side, you have the Shadowhammer style G.I. Joe, which is the first movie style, Rise of Cobra style G.I. Joe logo. But as you can see, this is just so you can, it's kind of reference. We see Skydive peeking out of the side, so you can see how big this thing is compared to a Joe. And he's got all that gear on, and this thing still looks huge compared to him. And that's my favorite thing about it. This thing is pretty damn big. It's probably the biggest vehicle I have next to the Pit. And I like that about this, because the Pit is the Joe, or I'm sorry, the Rock, but it's technically the Pit. The Rock, I use any of my Joes. I tend to have, I have another setup, kind of a diorama setup that I use as the base that's within the Pit. The actual Pit. It's like a secret portion of the Pit that's specifically for Shadowhammer, because those dealings are top secret and the rest of the Joes don't know that shit's going on. But anyway, this here, we can use it with Shadowhammer. We sometimes use it with the regular Joes. It's a huge versatile vehicle, and it's so fun to play with this thing in your house. You're flying around trying to make sure you don't clip corners, because this wingspan is huge. I mean, it's already just a big vehicle, but the wingspan, I mean, shit. I mean, what is it, like a yard? It's almost a yard. I want to say it's like 36 inches? Something like that. And just so that you get a even better sense of scale with this thing, I'm going to put my Blackhawk helicopter on top of this thing. And you see that the Blackhawk lengthways is not longer than the wingspan of this plane. It's nuts. You can hold a ton of guys on the inside. You can hold about 8 guys in the Blackhawk, 6 to 8. This one doesn't have, there's like a compartment after the front, you know, the 2 front seats where we can't get to it. But you can put 4 guys in there and yeah, about 6 guys. You can kind of squeeze 8 in there. In this thing, you've got, what, the 4 seats, but then standing room, you can put about 10 guys in the back alone. You can put about 3 piloting the thing if you need to. I mean, I don't see the reason to put 3. I always put just 2. And I use one of the figures that came with it, and then I, you know, put barrel roll up in there piloting the thing as well. It just works really well that way. I try to put less just to be safe. Here we got Scud at the guns. You can put, like I said, 3 guys. You can kind of see it in the previous image. You can put 3 guys on those guns. You can carry 1 of the ram cycles. I don't know if you just had the, well, 1 of the ram cycle with the sidecar. If you took the sidecar off, you could put 2 or 3 of them in there. You can't quite fit a Vamp. I think we might have done that once. Maybe you can fit a Vamp in there, but you can't, it won't, the cargo bay door itself, the clearance isn't enough for you to let it roll out properly. So, yeah, this thing is cool. It's more of a trooper transport, an aerial trooper transport, than it is anything else, and that's what we use it for. Next up, we have the, what did I call this? The Shark? I think I called it the Shark, the Sky Shark, something like that. This is the updated Sky Shark 2.0. Because this is Weaponsmith's redesign of the Sky Shark. The original Sky Shark was the kind of plane / sub. This thing is more of a hovercraft sub, and it has flight capabilities as well. I just figured early on, this is actually a core vehicle, and I don't know how easy it is to find these guys because I've never seen it in the store after I got this thing about 5 years ago, something like that, maybe 6 years ago. I got this in 08. Yeah, so I got it several years ago. But this was one of the first vehicles I ever got with when I restarted collecting JOES, and I started to have a kind of a purpose, you know what I mean, to my JOES, and I came up with the idea of Shadowhammer being the Black Ops version of G.I. Joe, and then having my, you know, that be a team within the Joe team. And this was the only vehicle I had. It seats 2, which is awesome, and because it was smaller in size and it looked heavier, more heavily armored than the original, I was like, why don't I make this thing an updated, more futuristic type of deal? You know what I mean? Because it just looks so sleek, and it has the cool Vulcan cannons in the front. That's what I always default to because I grew up playing games like R-Type and whatnot. So the front cannons on most of these kind of vehicles are always Vulcans. They shoot that basic blue shot, you know what I mean? Especially if Weaponsmith made it, because that's how I see this in my head. So this thing can fly, it can hover, you know, on water like a hovercraft, and it can go below the surface of the water. It can actually, it has a submarine function. So it was really cool and fast, and it has missiles. Actually, it's really cool, Copperheads, and the idea was just that this was their versatile vehicle that they could do just about any kind of mission in. You know what I mean? You know, short of driving, it actually has wheels, so you could drive it on land, but I tried not to go that far because it is supposed to be a hovercraft. So yeah, this thing, it takes them everywhere. It just was versatile. You can tell this is old because I've got tape on there. This was before I actually thought about ever showing this stuff to people, you know. It's just for my personal fun. And then you know, here we are showing it off, and I didn't even think about that while I was taking the picture. I'm thinking about it now as I'm verbally, you know, and going over all this stuff. But it's a fun vehicle. Here's the rock slide. This is for, you know, Shadowhammer's Arctic operations, and I know that there is a version of this that is what's the word, desert camoed, but I figured, you know, screw that. This just looks like an Arctic vehicle. That's what it was for. They used it for an Arctic mission in the film. That's the way I was going to use it. And there's a couple vehicles too that I wanted to get around this time that I wasn't able to get, like the armor cycle and the actual Polar Shark submarine, which someday I'll probably pick those up. Probably not anytime soon. I don't know. Depends on the price. But this is a one-seater. Between my son and I, we have two of them, and then we have the old school ones too. We have two of those also because I got him the Then and Now pack, and then my wife got me the Then and Now pack as well. So, you know, we have two. Actually, I have two of those because I have a Valor versus Venom one. Now here's the Shadow Hammer air support. These are the Sky Sweepers. Now, the cool thing about the Sky Sweepers were initially, and I might still do this, because I was thinking about not having a differentiation between the air support for the JOES. I just use the Sky Hammer since I have 5 of them, and that's it. That'll just be Sky air support, that along with the big old AC-130. And I was thinking to myself, what if I repaint these, which will probably be a bitch, which is kind of why I haven't done it, but what if I repaint these, you know, the darker blue and make them Cobra, you know, air support, like fire bats or something, you know, or paint them red and make them Cobra fire bats. But anyway, for now, these are the standard Joe air support, and I like them. They're really cool. They're nimble. They're easy to play with. That's the thing too, that like when I'm collecting vehicles for my JOES, I want stuff that I can actually play with if I want to play, you know, me and my son. And I want stuff that it'll be easy to store. I don't want a whole bunch of big stuff just taking up all my space. That's why I only have 2 really big vehicles. I need something huge for Cobra, you know. And then here is the Rhino. I love this thing. This was the first actual Joe vehicle that I got for my JOES when I restarted collecting G.I. Joes in 09. This thing we got at Target for $10, I think it was, or $20, something like that. We got it on clearance. It might have been, yeah, $20, something like that. We got it on clearance because the movie had came out and a lot of this stuff had just been hanging around. The pilot is, I think his name is Cannonball, and the original figure's name was Metalhead. I think so. I could be wrong on that one, but I call him Cannonball. It's kind of weird because he has Mutt's head, the 25th anniversary Mutt's head, and he's got, you know, parts from General Hawk and whatnot. But he's an okay figure. I almost never take him out of the vehicle except for when we're actually playing, you know, some kind of mission and he's involved. But I like this vehicle. It's like a ground transport, you know, and yes, it does remind everyone of the Aliens APC. You can clearly see that was an influence because if you remove parts, that's all you see. You know what I'm saying? But I love this thing because it's armored, and it also has that very fast look to it. You know, it looks like almost like the Tumbler, and I just dig it. So, you know, for a long time, this was my other super versatile, you know, transport vehicle or mission vehicle, because it just looks like you open up that big door, you get inside, and you've got computers and all kinds of shit. And it actually does have a decent amount of like interior detail and shit going on the inside, and several places for you to actually store JOES, you know, transport a bunch of JOES. That makes me happy because that is what was lacking from a lot of the other vehicles, you know. I like having my transports, and I like having my straight up mission vehicles, you know. Every now and then you get a situation where, you know, you're going to have a bunch of JOES dispatched to an area. I love doing that, you know. So, you know, when I first started, I didn't have that many JOES. I just had the main cast of Rise of Cobra, but this was perfect because I could put them all in here. You know, I could put General Hawk in here giving orders, and then of course with the press of a button you could have Scarlet and Ripcord in the helicopter, and I always pretended that thing was like Airwolf. It was like all super dope and whatnot, and you could take some of the gear off of the main body, like the missile launchers or the machine guns that you see right there on the side. You can take those off, and, you know, due to the modular construction and those ports that you see on the helicopter as well as the Rhino itself, you can just attach things to it. So I always pretended it was a pretty fast helicopter. It's well armored, it's nimble, you know. It just made things a little bit more difficult for the enemy. There was a point in time also when I got this that I thought about making this a Cobra vehicle because it was so semi-high-tech, but the more you look at it, it's functional. And a lot of Cobra stuff is high-tech, but it's not necessarily really functional. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's high-tech for the sake of being high-tech because it would overpower the enemy, but it's not high-tech with a straight-up visible function to it. You know what I'm saying? Like, most military vehicles, they do something specific. Like, amphibious vehicles, you know, drive into the water and then have a you know, gears and shit and modes, a shift so that you can get across the water. You know what I'm saying? This here is like an example of that. You can transport that helicopter anywhere. The vehicle's armored, so it can go through just about anything on the ground, and then if you need to get above for recon purposes or whatever, you have that big ass helicopter. Well, it's not big, but you have that helicopter. And I love how it's hidden in the middle. But anyway, you can put 2 in the helicopter, which is awesome. It's one of the few JOE air support vehicles that you can seat 2, and it actually fits 2 comfortably. You can seat about 12 JOES inside the Rhino. I know that's what I do. You can put about 4 in the back. Actually, on both sides, you can put about 4 in the back on both sides, and that's your 8. You can put 1 in the center. Sometimes you can fit 2 in the center doors, and then you could put you know, and that's 12 right there. Besides the 2 in the front, your driver and your, you know, passenger. So, you know, there's a lot of room in there. You know what I mean? I like the fact that I can use this with most of the JOES, and there's no, like, you know, say you put Bazooka and Heavy Duty in there, or Bazooka and Roadblock, they don't take up more. I mean, they're bigger, but the space is big enough to fit every type of JOE that you might have. It won't be as comfortable as it is with you know, like the smaller JOES, but you can still fit them in there. I'm talking with all their gear and everything. So this thing is awesome. And then there's so many ways to, you know, so many loadout possibilities that, I don't know, I just have fun with this vehicle, you know. Sometimes, you know, if my brother, if my son's playing the villains, I can load this thing up so that it's quick, and it has the missile launchers on top, so you just use that, you know what I mean? No small guns, nothing. Blow up the walls, get in, rescue your prisoners, mount up, get the fuck out of there. You know what I mean? Keep it as simple as possible. And that's, I don't know, for me that's awesome. It's fun. It makes the whole entire thing that much more fun. And that's what you want with, you know, G.I. Joe vehicles. And it's a pretty large vehicle, and that's what we don't see much of anymore, you know? We don't see large vehicles coming from Hasbro. Everything's being cut down. So, you know, if you ever were to find this one, it's definitely worth picking up, especially if it's a good price. Now, lastly, we have the old school Vamp from the 50th anniversary collection. I'm not a huge fan of this thing because, like I said, I'm not a huge 25th anniversary fan. I am a Pursuit of Cobra fanatic. I love that stuff. I mean, I didn't buy everything because not everything to me was amazing with Pursuit of Cobra, but a lot of it was. And, you know, the Vamps that we got for Pursuit of Cobra were 1,000 times better than this, so I don't see what the big deal is for this thing. But it is cool to have, you know, a small Vamp that, you know, you can, you know, kind of a throwback Vamp. It is hard to put guys into this thing because the newer JOES are a little bit bigger, and with all their gear, sometimes it's hard. You have to either take things off to put the JOES in, or, you know, take things off and open doors, you know. But overall, it's a nice little, you know, small, fast vehicle. We kind of just pretend that the old Vamps were, they had decent armor, and they were really fast, you know. So, probably faster than the new Vamps, which the new Vamps, even though they're bigger, they're a little bit tougher, and they're not necessarily, the same speed isn't needed, you know. with all the openings, you know, sometimes rounds go through it. You know, it's more that you need to be prepared, and the driver needs to just be better with the new ones. So, you know, it's got the cool Copperhead missiles. I love calling them Copperheads from, what was that, Airwolf. Makes them sound special. It's got, you know, a lot of cool details, like that little scorpion with a knife going through it that Flint has on a lot of his gear. You even have that sticker for the Sky Strikers, and I kept that, and I put it on one of the Sky Hammers. So yeah, I like it. It's a nice little throwback vehicle. You know, it does remind me more of the Stinger, the Cobra Stinger, which is the Cobra's Vamp, than so much, you know, the JOES one. But regardless, for now, it's going to be for the JOES, and it's nice. Shadowhammer kind of uses it for those two-person missions. You need to get in, get out, and you need some armor and whatnot. But that wraps it up. So that has been a look at my Joe teams. It's fun going through and looking at all this stuff. It's not every day that you kind of get to do it. I mean, like, every day I walk through my studio to sit down and I see my stuff, but, you know, actually sitting down and looking at it and remembering what it was for, because there's pieces in here that I hardly ever use anymore, because, you know, Son's got Boy Scouts, he's got other things going on. We don't play as much as we used to, but, you know, from time to time I do break out the JOES and go ham while I'm up here, so it's kind of nice to take a look at that stuff again, you know, the stuff that I haven't gotten to yet in a while. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope this inspires some more, because as you can see, everything has a function, because I'm all about form and function. There's got to be a use for it, or there's no purpose to getting it. And you know, a lot of my collecting is very specific, because I don't want to run out of space, and I want to actually use what I have, you know. So I don't have the Joe Force is smaller. My Joe Force is smaller than my Cobra Force, so that they actually have a reason to have difficulty fighting Cobra, you know, and it looks cooler, and that way I can actually have the JOES be outnumbered, you know, when they go out in certain missions, they're outnumbered when dealing with Cobra, and I like that, you know, it's really cool. So all in all, I hope you guys enjoyed it again. Chapman Films, thank you for getting this whole thing started, and I don't know, I hope this was enjoyable for everybody else as much as it was enjoyable for me, you know, to make it. So yeah, I'm gonna close out with one more word from our sponsor, but until next time, peace outside.